September 19, 1944, 0615 hours, vicinity of Aricourt, eastern France. The dawn mist hung dense across the Lorraine terrain as the Panthers from the 113th Panzer Brigade pushed forward to their designated targets. Based on the brigade's post-battle documentation submitted to 5th Panzer Army Command, around 0620 hours, forward units came across hostile tank destroyers of unidentified design. Opposition vehicles displayed remarkable agility, striking our armor at distances between 400 and 800 meters before quickly withdrawing. First engagement caused the destruction of 3 Panthers in 5 minutes. Beyond the haze, German armored crews detected an unfamiliar noise, a shrill motor whine resembling aircraft engines. Compact silhouettes emerged through the fog, unleashed quick bursts, then disappeared before German gunners could rotate their weapons to respond. Each assault sequence lasted under 20 seconds. Throughout the combat zone that dawn, 39 German armored vehicles from the 113th Panzer Brigade, led by Colonel Erich Fonsendorf, were poised to learn a frightening reality. The Americans had constructed a tank destroyer capable of 55 miles per hour, quicker than any tracked combat vehicle in service. While German strategy presumed tank destroyers would be sluggish, massively protected fortresses similar to their Jag Panther units, the M18 Hellcat had been engineered following an entirely alternative concept: velocity as protection, movement as endurance, nimbleness as deadliness. The calculations of armored warfare were about to be transformed. A Panther's weapon mount required 18 to 60 seconds for complete rotation, varying with motor velocity. The Hellcat's powered turret could spin 360 degrees in merely 24 seconds, regardless of motor RPM. At 55 miles per hour, the M18 could traverse 400 meters before a Tiger's turret could rotate even 90 degrees. The revolution commenced in December 1941 when Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Davis Bruce presented before a restricted briefing at the War Department. The crushing effectiveness of German blitzkrieg methods had demolished traditional military reasoning. Poland had surrendered in 35 days. France, possessing the globe's largest military force, had crumbled in 6 weeks. The Wehrmacht's panzer formations had demonstrated that movement and massing could overcome any fixed fortification. Bruce, a cavalryman by background who grasped the importance of pace and tactics, suggested something unconventional. Rather than equaling German armor weight for weight, weapon for weapon, America would construct a machine that pursued tanks the manner cavalry previously pursued foot soldiers, through rapidity, shock, and enhanced movement. The tank destroyer unit would function under a straightforward principle: locate, assault, eliminate. The U.S. Ordnance Department released specifications for a rapid tank destroyer in December 1941. The requirements developed swiftly through 1942, originally demanding a 37 mm weapon, subsequently 57 mm, then 75 mm, and ultimately the 76 mm cannon. The Christie suspension system was evaluated but rejected for torsion bars. By April 1943, Buick's T-70 model exhibited velocities that appeared unattainable for a tracked machine. German intelligence, upon discovering American tank destroyer creation, rejected it as characteristic American inexperience. Wehrmacht principles, validated in 4 years of warfare, instructed that successful tank destroyers demanded substantial armor and mighty weapons like their 88 mm equipped Jag Panther weighing 46 tons. The notion that Americans would construct a 17.7-ton machine with protection no greater than 25 mm appeared strategically foolish. May 23, 1944, the Anzio breakthrough. The Hermann Göring Panzer Division faced their initial M18s during operations around the sector. The division's daily battle documentation to the 14th Panzer Corps observed, opposition deploys novel tank destroyer variant. Machine velocity approximated 70 to 80 km hourly. 2 Panzer IVs eliminated before opposition machine withdrew. Counterfire unsuccessful owing to target's swift displacement. German operators described machines that maneuvered unlike anything in their identification guides, low-profile vehicles racing across terrain at velocities they connected with wheeled scout vehicles, not tracked platforms mounting 76 mm weapons. The accounts arrived in Berlin, where they were catalogued as unverified and probably overstated. The German Supreme Command presumed veteran operators were inflating opposition capabilities under battle strain. September 1944 delivered the complete devastating disclosure. The U.S. Third Army's progression through Lorraine had extended German protection lines beyond capacity. Hitler directly commanded a counterpush to retake Nancy and annihilate Patton's advance. The 5th Panzer Army under General Otto von Manschufel gathered its finest available forces, the recently established 111th and 113th Panzer Brigades outfitted with factory new Panthers. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion linked to the 4th Armored Division's Combat Command. They had stationed their M18s around Ericourt. As daybreak arrived on September 19, the German assault unfolded in thick fog. Lieutenant Edwin Leeper's section of M18s attacked with crushing accuracy. Per the 704th's post-action documentation, Lieutenant Leeper's section confronted opposition armor at distances of 400 to 800 yards. Utilizing hit-and-relocate methods, eliminated 15 hostile tanks in roughly 30 minutes of fighting. Sergeant Henry R. Hartmann's M18, situated on the section's wing, accomplished remarkable achievement. His gunner destroyed 6 Panthers in quick succession, repeatedly moving to a fresh shooting location before German armor could respond. Hartmann subsequently earned the Distinguished Service Cross for his performance. The 113th Panzer Brigade's casualties were disastrous. From German formation archives, brigade confronted opposition tank destroyers near Ericourt. Opposition machines showed unprecedented movement. Calculated velocity 80+ kilometers hourly. Casualties, 39 armor eliminated, 11 impaired. Opposition casualties approximated 3 to 4 machines. When German units ultimately seized an undamaged M18 near Metz in November 1944, Wehrmacht weapons evaluation personnel performed a comprehensive analysis. Their technical documentation forwarded to the Inspector General of Panzer Forces disclosed specifications that questioned every presumption about tank destroyer engineering. Confirmed specifications. Mass, 17.7 metric tons versus Panther 44.8 tons. Peak velocity, 88.5 km per hour verified on evaluation circuit, Panther, 46 km per hour peak. Motor, Wright R975, C4 radial, 400 horsepower, subsequent manufacturing variants. Power to mass proportion, 22.6 horsepower per ton, Panther, 15.6 horsepower per ton, Tiger Eye, 12.8 horsepower per ton. Turret rotation, 360 degrees in 24 seconds, hydraulically driven. Protection, peak 25 mm turret front, 13 mm hull flanks. Primary weapon, 76 mm M1A1 or M1A2. Power transfer, torquematic automatic, 3 forward gears. The German documentation determined, machine obtains capability through radical engineering approach. Protection coverage surrendered for movement. Motor is aviation variant, air-cooled radial. Automatic power transfer removes clutch operation, allowing operator to focus on steering. Battle productivity relies wholly on movement and operator instruction. The calculations of the M18's edge were undeniable. German armor turret rotation velocities, reliant on motor RPM, fluctuated considerably. Tiger Eye, 6 to 19 degrees per second, 60 to 19 seconds for complete rotation. Panther early variants, 6 degrees per second, 60 seconds for complete rotation. Panther later variants, up to 19 degrees per second at 2000 revolutions per minute, 19 seconds minimum. Tiger II, 15 to 24 degrees per second, 24 to 15 seconds for complete rotation. The M18's powered rotation sustained 15 degrees per second irrespective of motor velocity, essential when confronting numerous targets or monitoring fast-moving opponents. At its maximum velocity of 55 miles per hour, an M18 could cover 400 meters in 16 seconds, 800 meters in 33 seconds, traverse a 1,000-meter danger zone in 41 seconds. A Panther needed 30 to 60 seconds merely to finish a 180-degree turret rotation when monitoring a shifting target at changing velocities. The M18's deployment transformed American anti-armor methods. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion's Battle Handbook, revised following AirAccord, outlined. M18 deployment accentuates movement over straight firepower trading. Suggested confrontation sequence: discharge 3 to 5 rounds from hidden location. Promptly relocate minimum 200 yards. Re-attack from fresh location at altered angle. Never stay motionless longer than 60 seconds when under opposition sight. This strike-and-withdraw principle proved crushingly successful. German armor operators trained for systematic, calculated confrontations at extended distance couldn't adjust to adversaries who declined direct battles. December 19, 1944. The German Ardennes push, Hitler's final wager, was in its third day. The 2nd Panzer Division, leading the advance toward Antwerp, neared the vital junction at Neuville, defended by Team de Sobry and components of the 101st Airborne Division. For M18s from the 609th and 705th Tank Destroyer Battalions confronted crushing disadvantages. The morning haze that had assisted in hiding German activities now became the Hellcat's partner. Per the 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion's battle documentation, for M18s confronted components of 2nd Panzer Division in haze circumstances utilizing high-velocity movement between shooting locations generated perception of bigger protection unit. Verified eliminated 24 opposition armor. M18 casualties, 1 machine to artillery. The Hellcat's methods were straightforward but productive. They would discharge 2 or 3 rounds, then promptly reverse at maximum velocity into the haze. By the moment German armor rotated their turrets toward the weapon flashes, the M18s had shifted 200 to 300 yards and were attacking from an entirely altered angle. The 2nd Panzer Division's combat journal documented, faced robust tank destroyer opposition at Neuville. Opposition machines of elevated movement functioning in haze. Incapable of productively confronting owing to swift movement of targets. Assault halted awaiting support. This 48-hour postponement proved vital, permitting the 101st Airborne to reinforce Bastion's protections and ultimately secure the essential junction. By November 1944, German leaders were frantically attempting to create methods to neutralize the M18 danger. General Otto von Manschufel released tactical direction to 5th Panzer Army. Opposition M18 tank destroyers verified. Able to achieve 80+ km hourly road velocity, 40+ km hourly cross terrain. Regular confrontation practices must be altered. Don't attempt to monitor moving M18 with turret rotation. Preposition turrets on probable movement paths. Deploy infantry with Panzerfausts on wings. Utilize artillery to suppress suspected locations. Prevent chase. M18s will perpetually outpace our machines. Yet these modifications proved largely fruitless. The M18's velocity edge was merely too substantial, and German operators couldn't surmount years of instruction that stressed calculated, exact gunnery over swift reaction. The Buick Motor Division produced 2,507 minutes and 18 seconds between July 1943 and October 1944. Manufacturing climaxed at 267 units in November 1943. The initial agreement demanded 8,986 machines, but this was diminished as the conflict's conclusion neared and the tank destroyer philosophy progressed. Each M18 required $55,230 in 1943, comparatively costly owing to the specialized motor and power transfer, yet still mass manufacturable utilizing American automotive sector methods. Conversely, a German Panther required roughly 117,100 Reichsmarks and demanded considerably greater manufacturing duration owing to its intricate final transmission and gearbox arrangements. The M18 was engineered for mass manufacturing from inception. The Wright Art 975 radial motor was currently in manufacturing for aviation and additional machines. The Torquematic transmission removed intricate operator instruction. The open-top turret streamlined production. Regular automotive parts were utilized wherever feasible. The Tank Destroyer Training Center at Camp Hood, Texas, created specialized curricula for M18 operators. Instruction stressed abilities distinct from traditional armor functions. Driver instruction concentrated on high-velocity steering, swift acceleration and stopping, and landscape exploitation. Operators mastered sustaining peak velocity while supplying stable weapon platforms during quick halts. Gunner instruction stressed swift target detection and shooting while moving. Unlike German gunners instructed for calculated, exact extended distance shots, M18 gunners mastered shooting rapidly at moderate distances, accepting reduced initial round impact likelihood in return for swift confrontation. Commander instruction emphasized battlefield consciousness, swift judgment, and synchronization with additional M18s. Leaders mastered thinking 3 actions forward, perpetually organizing their following 2 shooting locations before confronting. The psychological composition for M18 operators varied from heavy armor operators. Recruiters sought individuals comfortable with danger, capable of instant judgments, and who favored nimbleness over the psychological security of substantial protection. The M18's primary limitation was clear: its paper-thin protection. With peak coverage of 25 mm on the turret front and merely 13 mm on the hull flanks, the machine was exposed to nearly every German anti-armor weapon, including 20 mm anti-aviation weapons at near distance, 37 mm anti-armor weapons at any distance, Panzer infantry weapons, artillery shrapnel, even substantial machine weapon discharge at near distance on flank protection. This exposure influenced every facet of M18 deployment. Regular functioning practices stressed: never stay motionless under opposition sight. Prevent urban fighting where velocity is neutralized. Sustain minimum 500-meter separation from opposition infantry. Utilize landscape concealment continuously. Synchronize with infantry to suppress opposition anti-armor weapons. M18 operators created an almost supernatural consciousness of their environment, perpetually examining for dangers and withdrawal paths. By conflict's conclusion, M18 outfitted tank destroyer battalions had gathered the following confirmed accounts. Destruction assertions by battalions: 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion, 106 opposition armor. 603rd Tank Destroyer Battalion, 92 opposition armor. 609th Tank Destroyer Battalion, 67 opposition armor. 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion, 89 opposition armor. 805th Tank Destroyer Battalion, 51 opposition armor. Comprehensive statistics. Total M18s in fighting, 540 peak strength, March 1945. Fighting casualties, 216 machines. Destruction to casualty proportion, 2.3 to 1 in Europe. Typical confrontation distance, 650 meters. Typical confrontation length, 2.3 minutes. While the 2.3 to 1 destruction proportion was acceptable, it fell beneath pre-conflict anticipations. More considerably, M18s devoted roughly 70% of their fighting duration in infantry assistance functions rather than pursuing armor. The tank destroyer philosophy's basic presumption of concentrated opposition armor assaults proved predominantly incorrect. The Italian operation presented distinct obstacles. The 805th Tank Destroyer Battalion functioning M18s in hilly landscape discovered that even in limiting landscape, the Hellcat's movement supplied edges. The machines could swiftly relocate between endangered areas utilizing mountain passages where bulkier machines struggled. Throughout the Gothic Line conflicts, M18s would race to controlling elevations, confront German machines in valleys beneath, then shift before counter-battery discharge arrived. German units in Italy, habituated to the typically ponderous Allied activities in challenging landscape, were repeatedly astonished by M18 reaction durations. A German corps-level documentation observed, opposition tank destroyers show capacity to mass swiftly at endangered locations. Velocity of relocation prevents productive counter-discharge. The 637th Tank Destroyer Battalion transported M-18s to the Pacific, engaging in the Philippines operation. Against minimal Japanese protection, the machines functioned chiefly in fortification elimination and infantry assistance functions. The exposed turret proved nearly lethal against Japanese infantry methods. Operators welded makeshift overhead coverage and mesh barriers to protect against explosives and demolition devices. The machine's velocity permitted swift reaction to Japanese penetration efforts, but forest landscape frequently neutralized movement edges. The M18 integrated several transformative characteristics. Torquematic transmission. This automatic power transfer created by General Motors removed manual clutching. 3 forward velocities shifted automatically based on velocity and burden. Operators could focus wholly on steering rather than gear choice, vital at elevated velocities. Torsion bar suspension, supplying 14 inches of wheel displacement. This suspension arrangement permitted sustained high-velocity activity over irregular landscape. The extended suspension displacement absorbed impacts that would have impaired leaf spring machines. Wright R975 radial motor. This 9-cylinder air-cooled aviation motor supplied remarkable power to mass proportion. Initial variants, C1, generated 350 horsepower while subsequent editions, C4, produced 400 horsepower. Air cooling removed exposed radiators and coolant arrangements. Hydraulic turret rotation, driven by an electric motor operating a hydraulic pump. This arrangement supplied consistent 15° per second rotation irrespective of motor velocity or machine activity, a vital edge over German manual rotation arrangements. The M18's fighting account deeply affected post-war armored machine creation. While the tank destroyer philosophy itself was discarded, the tank destroyer force disbanded in November 1945, the Hellcat's exhibition that movement could replace protection resonated internationally. Soviet Union created the PT-76 light amphibious armor and subsequently BMP infantry combat machine stressing movement. Britain produced the CVR-T series prioritizing velocity for scouting. France constructed the AMX-13 with automatic loader to diminish mass. Germany, the Leopard 1 discarded substantial protection for movement, complete reversal of World War II approach. Contemporary wheeled tank destroyers like the Italian Centauro, Japanese Type 16, and American M1128 mobile gun system represent the M18's theoretical descendants, accepting exposure for strategic and tactical movement. Why couldn't German units, celebrated for tactical creativity, productively neutralize the M18? Several elements contributed. Doctrinal inflexibility. German armor instruction stressed calculated extended distance gunnery. Operators devoted years perfecting exact shooting methods that were worthless against swiftly moving targets. Technical constraints. German turret rotation arrangements reliant on motor RPM couldn't equal the M18's consistent powered rotation. At idle or reduced motor velocities, German armor were practically defenseless against flanking M18s. Psychological impact. German tankers had functioned with impunity against most Allied protection. The psychological effect of abruptly becoming quarry rather than hunter cannot be minimized. Communication collapse. German tactical radios, currently stressed by Allied interference, couldn't synchronize reactions to swiftly moving M18s functioning in section strength. In post-conflict discussions performed by the U.S. Army's Military History Institute, M18 veterans persistently stressed velocity as their chief endurance instrument. Staff Sergeant Vernon Miller, 805th Tank Destroyer Battalion. We existed by 3 principles: shoot rapidly, shift rapidly, reason rapidly. If you accomplished all 3, you returned home. If you failed at any one, you didn't. Technical Sergeant John Patterson, 603rd Tank Destroyer Battalion. The Hellcat wasn't about equal battles. It was about unequal battles in our benefit. We'd strike them where they didn't anticipate, when they didn't anticipate, and be departed before they realized what occurred. Private First Class Robert Chen, 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion. Every occasion I entered our M18, I understood I was seated in a metal container, but it was a metal container that could operate 55 miles hourly. That velocity rescued my existence more occasions than any protection could have. The M18's fighting statistics convey an intricate narrative. Movement metrics. Maximum velocity, 55 miles per hour, 88.5 kilometers per hour, on passages. Cross-terrain velocity, 26 miles per hour, 42 kilometers per hour. Acceleration, 0 to 30 miles per hour in 11 seconds. Distance, 150 miles on 165 gallons of fuel. Ground force, 10.5 psi, lighter than numerous trucks. Fighting capability. Typical destructions per machine, 2.4 opposition armor. Typical endurance duration in fighting, 67 days. Mechanical dependability, 200 miles between substantial maintenance. Operator endurance percentage when machine eliminated, 73%. These statistics disclose both capabilities and limitations. The elevated operator endurance percentage mirrored the machine's velocity. Operators could frequently escape even when their M18 was struck. The comparatively brief fighting endurance duration verified the exposure of thin protection. The M18 Hellcat's impact reaches beyond particular machines to basic concepts in contemporary combat. Sensor-to-shooter duration. Contemporary fighting stresses swift target confrontation, theoretically comparable to the M18 strike-and-withdraw methods. Active coverage. Today's active coverage arrangements represent technology attempting to duplicate what the M18 obtained through velocity, preventing strikes rather than. Network-centric combat. M18 sections synchronizing swift assaults from numerous directions anticipated contemporary networked fighting functions. Asymmetric reaction. The M18 exhibited that technological advantage doesn't demand equaling opposition capabilities, it demands neutralizing them. The M18 Hellcat stands as one of World War II's most creative fighting machines. Created from American industrial capability and tactical ingenuity, it questioned basic presumptions about armored combat. German tankers instructed to dominate through enhanced protection and firepower discovered that American creativity meant altering the engagement principles wholly. The Hellcat's 55 miles per hour maximum velocity wasn't merely a technical detail, it was a paradigm transformation that German tactical philosophy couldn't accommodate. The M18 demonstrated that in combat, as in nature, endurance doesn't perpetually benefit the most powerful or the most substantially equipped. Occasionally it benefits the quickest, the most nimble, the most flexible. German armor operators, observing their careful targeted shots miss swiftly disappearing M18s, mastered this instruction repeatedly in the destruction zones of France, the frozen forests of the Ardennes, and the concluding conflicts in Germany itself. Today, when military scholars analyze the M18 Hellcat, they perceive more than merely an effective tank destroyer. They perceive American military creativity at its most inventive, identifying opposition capabilities and methodically neutralizing them through untraditional methods. The German tankers never understood the American Hellcat could obtain 55 miles hourly until they confronted it in fighting. That technological astonishment, joined with tactical creativity and operator instruction, produced a weapon arrangement that exceeded its mechanical details. In the conclusion, the M18 Hellcat transformed the calculations of armored fighting. It demonstrated that coverage didn't demand protection, that deadliness didn't demand the largest weapon, and that combat supremacy could be obtained through movement rather than bulk. At 55 miles hourly, it outpaced not merely German armor, but German military philosophy itself. The phantoms of M18s still occupy contemporary military reasoning. Every occasion a military organizer selects movement over coverage, every occasion a leader stresses velocity of performance over calculated arrangement, every occasion a weapons engineer accepts exposure to obtain capability, the Hellcat's instruction resonates through periods. Occasionally the finest protection is not existing where the opposition shoots. German tankers of the 113th Panzer Brigade, the 2nd Panzer Division, and numerous additional formations mastered this instruction in blood and flame. They confronted an adversary that declined to battle on their conditions, that transformed their capabilities into limitations, that attacked and disappeared like apparitions in the haze. They mastered that American creativity didn't signify constructing superior armor. It signified constructing something wholly distinct. Something that shifted too rapidly for their methods, their instruction, and their turrets to neutralize. The M18 Hellcat, 55 miles hourly of American boldness, remains evidence that in combat, velocity can be the supreme weapon. German tankers never understood the American Hellcat could obtain such velocities. By the moment they mastered, it was currently too delayed. The conflict was forfeited not merely on the combat zone, but in the domain of creativity, where American engineers ventured to exchange protection for rapidity, producing a hunter that pursued the pursuers. Don't forget to subscribe to World War II Histories. Share your thoughts in the comments. Every opinion, question, and discussion helps keep history alive.